Many people say content is king, and I like to say content is king and data is Kong, and that's how you get your King Kong. I think everyone knows who King Kong is, pretty strong one. In my first days at the current company I'm at, I wanted to make my photographers and my copywriters and all my content production people in the team really feel like they are doing a valuable job. They're not only just producing and producing and producing. They are really the ones that are putting things out there that really moves the needle for the consumers. So I gave them paper crowns my first day to let them know that they are my kings. And then with time, I also built up for the organizations I've been with in terms of the data that enables them in terms of the Kong. And that relationship between your content and making sure that you're testing and knowing exactly what catch, connects, and converts in terms of bringing that data to them is really fundamental and the key for any marketeer that works within e-commerce today. So that bridges us into the A in terms of cars, which is access to data. And data beats any kind of opinion, no matter what organization you sit within, what political arguments that you have, whatever hippos you have, which is the highest professional person in the room. Data always wins over any kind of opinion. Believing is what we do in church. I usually say to the people I work within, if I hear them say, I believe, it's good that we believe, but we also want to know in terms of driving with data at heart. So we drive with data and we drive with the consumer at heart. And it's important because marketeers usually talk about their who. But when we talk about the who and the target group, we really need to understand more than that. We need to understand how they're behaving, and we need to understand that not only on our own touch points, we need to understand their full consumer journeys. We need to understand how they're moving across different platforms, even the ones that we don't own, such as our retailer partners. We don't measure versus ourselves only, and I hope I don't need to say this, but I see many different brands are just measuring versus year ago on themselves. We need to measure against the category. We're doing a job for the whole category and we're working for the consumer. So we really need to measure versus the category. And here I would suggest you guys really leveraging on website intelligence. So I'm here mentioning one of them in terms of SimilarWeb. I sit in their customer advisory board and have used them for a couple of years on and off. Here it's really key to understand your competitor's strategy in terms of their audiences and how are they moving around, and whatever is triggering that is something that you as a marketeer need to know. Not only, as said, on your own platforms, but also on your non-owned platforms. Where are their audience overlaps and why is it like that? And what can you do in terms of insight into action? We need to stop blaming these walled gardens in terms of, I hear many people when I present in terms of what I work with saying to me, but Madeleine, how can you do this? Because the retailer is not providing me with X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, they will never do that. We need to focus at what we can actually do versus what we have a limit in. We do have limits, but we also have lots of opportunities today as the modern marketeers we are, and the technology and the different solutions that are at our fingertips today. And when it comes to access to data, we see, and I probably have more hours on looking at eye tracking versus what I have on Netflix. I'm a little bit geeky in terms of digging deeper into data. And we see here experience goes over price, and we as marketeers are the ones that are really the ones that are supposed to deliver that experience. And what you could use here is on, for example, on non-owned platforms, you can use eye tracking, for example, where you don't then look at only click data, because this is important. Remember, again, I talked about, let's not only measure time spent and, okay, that meant this kind of thing in a CTR. It's really measure the more cognitive things. Where are the key attention points? And then understand in terms of why is that the key attention point? Why is that bringing a specific mental availability around that product? And how can you help the consumer so that sort of connections in their brain goes faster, so they can spend instead the time with their family and friends? So that's the eye tracking part. And that we do on a lot of different platforms and across different platforms, and also on multiple devices. I think in terms of also leveraging on what's out there in terms of user-generated content, which I will come back to in terms of how you can use that as well in terms of access to data and inside interaction, is also key in terms of driving the fundamentals within e-commerce as modern marketeers. And I think also there is a job we need to do as manufacturers. We owe it to our retailer touch points and our partners, as we call them, to have an exchange. We are really understanding our category and our consumers within that specific product or specific service better than a retailer that is selling everything from then diapers into vacuum cleaners. And this is where we need to come together and help in terms of insights, user-generated content. We also share a lot of traffic to our retailers and help them understand in terms of how they move from our own platforms into partner platforms to make different purchases. So access to data, I'm going to end that part of the chapter with this really good picture, which is a message I hope is clear for anyone that is working within marketing for e-commerce, that you don't have a seat at the table if you're spraying and praying it. You will have a seat at the table once you have access to data and can recommend your organization in terms of how you take those insights into action.